everybody, welcome back to my channel. So I'm going to be doing a video of my updated foundation routine. Now, normally for me, I don't record myself doing makeup. When I used to go live on Facebook, that was like the only time anybody saw me putting on makeup. But I feel like since I'm stepping back out into my, makeup era when it comes to me personally and not as an artist, I want you guys to be able to see my updated foundation routine. We're just going to really talk about what I've been into lately in terms of my foundation, the coverages I like, a couple of brands that I use, and just some recommendations for you if you have the same skin type as me. So if any of that sounds like something that you think you'd be interested in, please stay tuned and let's get into it. Okay, y'all, so just like the title states, this video is going to be about my updated foundation routine. I'm really just going to be showing y'all essentially how I apply my base myself and just like what that routine looks like for me. I know that foundation applying and application can be different for everyone. So, take this with a grain of salt when I tell you like your routine is just that, it's yours. So you don't necessarily have to follow every routine that you see on the internet. I know when I was first starting out with makeup, I kind of felt like, if I didn't apply my makeup or my foundation a certain type of way, it wasn't going to come out cute. When really, with the beauty of makeup, it's all about trial and error. You're going to have things that work. You're going to have things that are not going to work. And then really, it's just really about ultimately having fun. That's what I like to do. So the foundation that I'm going to be using today is going to be the NARS. This is the Natural Radiant Longwear Foundation. She has been my go-to for the last year or so. I was using this foundation in my professional kit, my personal kit. I love it. I love it. I love it just because I like the finish. I like the coverage. I like the way it looks. I like the way it feels. And I just like the way that it works with all of the other products that I'm going to be using. So this video essentially might be a bit longer because I am going to be doing makeup, but also talking. Now, some of it I will be speeding through because I'm not accustomed to doing routines like this. But the one thing that I did want to show you a little bit of is how I do my eyebrows in the video. So what I've been doing lately is I love the lamination look to brows, or like that technique in general, because I think it's really fitting for people who have thicker brows like me. Now, typically my brows are arched with a razor or I go and get a wax, but this is what they're like right now, natural with no product. Now, I am going to use the e.l.f. brow lift on my brows along with a spoolie brush. This is my faithful one from Anastasia Beverly Hills, of course. So we're going to be using these two together to get my brows in check. So typically when I do this, take off the product top, I get a little bit of it on the spoolie. Now I'm going to be looking in between a mirror, but also here because I'm not advanced enough to be doing my makeup through just the lens of my camera, but it'll be enough to where you get a full view. So we're just going to take that product and sweep it into the brow. Now, what I like about the brow wax is a little goes a long way. And the goal is just to have really nicely groomed brows. Now, because my brows are so thick, even if I get like an arch or a wax, sometimes they tend to be a little bit unruly and they will not stay in place. So if I'm going for that dramatic laminated look, normally that's what I'll do. I'll brush them in place just like this. Then what I like to do is I'll simply take one of my fingers and I'll brush up the product just like this. And what this does, normally I would say don't do this because the oils in your hands could affect the product, but I'm only doing this tutorial for y'all and then this makeup's coming right back off. But I take my fingers and I simply brush and press that product into the brow so that you see that it lays them very flat. Now, normally you could either take your spoolie and then shape the brows more, but I leave mine just like this because I like the way that it looks. Now at this point I could stop, but I like to conceal my brows. And the brow concealer that I typically use, it's a facial concealer, but I use it specifically and exclusively for my brows because I like the way that it makes them look. It's going to be the the True Complexion Longwear Concealer. And this is from Black Radiance. I don't know the exact shade because they put like numbers on the bottom, but it's definitely for somebody who's a lot lighter than me. It's a very golden concealer too. And then I take a concealer brush, something that I've made flat myself, and I take a product on the front and the back, because normally I'll use enough to do both of my brows. And then what we're gonna do is we're just gonna sculpt and clean that brow to make it look more precise. Now, I normally start at the beginning of the brow and then I work my way back. And all I'm doing is essentially carving out the brow. I know that's like so 2016, but I am a 2016 makeup girly, and this is what I like to do. So you carve out that brow, and because I'm not gonna be drawing any additional hairs, I'm gonna blend that down into my eyelid a bit. I do this when I'm wearing eyeshadow too, and normally that's where you would stop. Now you would take the remaining product and we're gonna go to the second brow. Now, because I am a right-handed person, I take the concealer and I lay it the same way, but my brows are a bit different because even though I would like them to be sisters and not, well, twins and not sisters, they're not. So I still follow the same rule of thumb with my concealer on the other brow. And if it gets a bit messy, it's fine, because if you're wearing like shadow, you can always clean it up. And that's normally where I like to stop, on the bottom of the brow. Normally after that, I'll take like a fluffy brush, something like this. Yes, it's dirty, but that's because I've used it this week for concealer. Don't judge me. I'll take that same brush and I'll blend that concealer out. You might hear occasional groan in the background. That is my dog, Sapphire. Pay her no mind. She's just doing that because she wants to be the star. But you will take that concealer, you'll blend that all together. Hey, stop. You'll blend that all together. And then after that, at this point, you can stop. And if you wanted to, you can simply go over the brow with more concealer, or you can go straight in with your foundation. But because I'm extra, I'm going to conceal my entire brow. Okay, so now we're back and we have concealer on both sides of our brush because we're going to use enough to cover both the tops of both brows. And then what I like to do is I'll start in the front. Some people start in the back. That's ungodly. So I'm going to start in the front. And all I'm doing is essentially outlining the brow, but I'm leaving just enough space before the concealer can touch the hairs of my brow. Normally my brows are like the first part of my routine, so I like to keep them pretty precise. And then we stop there. We're gonna do the same to the other brow. Again, because I'm right-handed, I have to turn my stuff the other way, but the technique is still the same and the action still the same. You just want to apply as close to the brow as possible without getting concealer in the hair. Sometimes I do get a little bit of concealer in the hair, but it's okay because it just lays the brow down a little bit. It makes it more flat, and you'll see what I mean in just a second if you haven't already noticed that. Typically, this is what we're left with. Like I said, no, my brows don't look completely even because they are sisters, not twins. And then we're going to take our concealer brush and we're going to even out the concealer. Typically, I'll start in the center and I'll just brush that concealer out, because this concealer shade obviously is very golden for my skin tone. It is not my skin tone. It is just something that I use to highlight, but I will occasionally take this concealer and use it on the highlight points of my face when my full makeup routine is done. I won't be doing that today because I'm simply just showing y'all base and base only. So now that we've got our brows done, this is essentially the framework for the rest of the face. Now, if I were doing a full face makeup tutorial, obviously it would be different. But for me, this is normally where I like to stop with my brows. To me, they still look very clean. They look very polished. Again, like I said, there are some indiscrepancies with my brows because my hairs are a bit different here. But for the most part, they generally are about even and about the same. So now we're going to move on and get into the face work. Now, as with anything when it comes to applying makeup, whether it's a foundation, a skin tint, a tinted moisturizer, whatever your complexion product's going to be, I like to go in with a good primer. So what I've been doing recently is I've been testing primers up against my foundations to see what the performance is like, what's lasting, what works and what doesn't. Now, typically during the wintertime, I don't have as many problems with my foundation as I do in the summer. In the summertime, she be struggling. But recently, with the cooler months, I've been having the true opportunity to do makeup routines on myself and apply product without it melting off. And one of my essential products in my kit, both professional and personal, is going to be the Danessa Myricks Yummy Skin Balm. If you don't know, you need to know, because Danessa is that girl. Now, she was in her bag when she made this product. I like it because it's cool for like both oily and dry skin tones. It's got an interesting component in it called Upsolite, which is supposed to be something that balances the oil in the face so that you don't go oily throughout the day, because that is a common problem I have with foundation. It doesn't matter if it's a mattifying foundation or something claiming to be matte. I'll put on my foundation within 3 or 4 hours, I'm looking greasy again. So this is one of those products where it does the work for you. For this one in particular, you can use this on the face and the eyes. It is multifunctional. I love a product like that. You don't need a lot, and it's not something that you need to apply over the entire face. You can literally apply this in the T-zone or in the areas where you're the oiliest. Let it go, apply your foundation, you're good. Now, when you open the skin balm, it has this type of consistency. As you can see, I've dug in it already, but it's very creamy. I like the consistency and the texture. Now, I'm the only one using this, so I can double dip and then sanitize this later. But when I'm applying this, I'll apply it only where I'm the oiliest. And I do use my fingers to apply my primer. And I know it looks scary because you're like, hold on, Raven, you just said you were oily, but this stuff looks really shiny. Just let me cook. I'm applying it on my chin because I get oily there. And I'm applying a little bit on my nose. My forehead doesn't get oily. I am a person who sweats on my top lip and normally where my glasses sit in this area, because this is where I do get the greasiest. And then I take the residual primer and I put it on my top lip. And that's really it. So at that point, I don't go in and apply my foundation directly onto the skin. I let this sit, I let her percolate for a little bit. Normally at this point in time, if I'm going in between like brushes, I'll clean them. In this case, I'm just going off over them with a makeup wipe because these are gonna get washed later, so don't worry. But I'm switching out, doing like a little bit of a spot clean on my brushes. I'll do things like that to pass the time, and then I'm gonna come back and we're gonna get into the foundation application. All right, so now that the skin balm has set in, we're gonna go ahead and go in with our foundation. Now, for me personally, I tend to look for a full coverage foundation because I have hyperpigmentation on my face. I've been struggling with this for the last like decade. As someone who has PCOS, it's really hard for me to cover this without wanting to color correct, because I don't color correct my pigmentation. It's skin, it's gonna do what it's gonna do, and sometimes you just have to let it. So one thing that I like about the Natural Radiant Longwear Foundation is it allows me to have that coverage without making my skin look like, ooh girl, you got makeup on. So I like it. This foundation also is one that I get the most compliments on when I wear, and I'm always down for that. So I simply shake it up a bit, and I'm a person that pumps on the back of my hand. Normally I'll do 2 or 3 pumps. Now, for the sake of the video, I'm gonna tell you already that this foundation is my summer shade. It is not my winter shade in the slightest. It is definitely my summer. And I'm gonna take, so it may show up a little bit red on me, which I'm fine with because powder will lighten that up. I'm gonna take an angled foundation brush. I got this off of like Amazon, I think, or I may have gotten it off of, did I get it off of Amazon? It might have been Amazon, I don't know, y'all. And I'm gonna take a little bit of that product and I simply dab mine into the brush on the back of my hand. And then I start on the bottom of my face and work my way up. So since I have the most pigmentation issues here, I apply the product here because this lets me kind of see how the coverage is gonna look. And ultimately, if I can't cover what's under here, y'all, it's not gonna work. So normally that's how I like to start. And I just like sweep that foundation on. And I blend it into the middle of my neck because my neck is darker than the rest of my body. So I don't want this to look weird. So this is kind of where I'm at with that. And I'll add more as I need. Sometimes 2 or 3 pumps will get me a full face. It just really depends on the type of brush I'm using. Since this brush is more dense and it's not as wide as the other one, the coverage may be a bit different. And then when I'm applying this close to the area of my eyes, I normally leave space right up under here for if I use powder or concealer. But normally I just blend this until it gives me the finish that I want. And if you see me pull away a little bit, it's because I'm checking to make sure that it looks pretty even. Just because I am blending from pretty far away, I gotta make sure that things look even on the way out. But I wanna say, like, if you are someone that has like hyperpigmentation concerns, this foundation will still do you pretty good. Like I said, even looking at my skin, it looks really nice. So this is how we would like it to look. It still covers that pigmentation, but it still is giving skin, and I like it. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish up the rest of my face with the foundation, and I will come back with the final result. And then we'll get into some extra tidbits, if time permits, of course, of the rest of my full face, at least complexion routine. Okay, y'all, so I already started putting on my powder. I went ahead and finished the rest of the foundation so you guys can see how it looks once it's set down. Now, I didn't put any setting powder on because I'm gonna be setting with a powder instead. We're using the Huda Beauty Easy Bake setting powder in the shade Kanafa. So it's very like golden, which I like because sometimes with me being more of like a neutral girly, I like to have like that bit of brightening. And I'm using a powder puff to simply take the powder and apply it under my eyes and the places where I get the oiliest, because once you set this powder down, baby, it don't move. And I'm letting off the excess on the back of my hand because this powder, you get a lot for the amount that you're purchasing. You don't need very much. And I'm simply just applying that under the eye because I want like a really nice, smooth and creaseless finish. And the one thing I like about the Huda Beauty powder is you can literally apply this and get that brightening effect without having to use a brightening concealer. I know that's like the trend and that's like the rage nowadays, but for me, it just does not work. So I did it on my under eye, the chin, and I put a little bit around my mouth because I do get oily here and my makeup will separate if I don't set it. But I just connect that into my cheek in this area, and I just powder the rest of the way up. I don't extend this any further than my eye because this is normally where my contour is and where my blush is gonna go, so I don't want to disrupt that space. And then we're gonna go back over and just blend. Now forehead, you can put a little bit of powder there if you want to. I don't always do that, but for the sake of the video, I'll do a little bit. And normally I'll just start at the center of my brows and powder up. And then I'll do some in the nose, just the center. And normally, I'm not a person that does baking, even though baking is a technique that's marketed towards more oilier skin tones. For me, it just don't work. So this is what we're left with. Now, if I wanted to stop here and just dust off the powder and then set everything else, I could, but I'm gonna go and take it up a notch. I'm gonna add my contour, and then I'm gonna add a blush, and then we'll be done. So at this point, we're gonna go ahead and proceed with our contour. Now, normally I would powder the areas of my face where foundation is present and then set my contour on top of that, or my bronzer because that's what I'm using. But I wanna go ahead and just get it in because you can still do it that same way. So I'm gonna be using the NARS bronzing powder. I'm the shade Laguna 8. I probably could use something else, and I've got something in my eye, so you're gonna hear me talking about that. I could use maybe like another shade, but Laguna 8 has been my go-to for some time now, and I really like the color. I really like the way that it looks. I feel like I got a hair in my eye, y'all. I can't tell. Or maybe it was powder. I don't know. Either way, if I die, I die, whatever. So I'm gonna take an angled brush. This obviously has been used by bronzer because this is my bronzing brush. Tap off the excess, and then when I start my contour or bronzing, I still apply it in the same method as a contour. I start at the top of the cheeks and then I brush forward. And because I know my face, I don't have to smile in order to figure out the contours of my face, but this is normally how I like to apply that, and it looks nice and bronzed. We're gonna do that to the other side in the exact same fashion. And when you're doing this, brush to the back. I hate when I see people who have like incomplete looking contour where they're like, it stops right, starts there. Brush that into the hairline, y'all. I promise you, it's not gonna hurt if you don't. And then you can take the excess and add more, but I'm just double dipping. I'm still applying that to my hairline, brushing it up into the hairline because I like to have bronzer all the way around. And if I have to pull my unit back to show y'all this hairline, I will do just that. And I just connect from where that other bronzer was on my cheek. Well, friends, we had a bit of a technical delay while I was in the middle of finishing up my base routine. So I went off camera, completed the look, and this is what we have finished. I ended up adding bronzer. I did a little bit of blush on my cheeks. You can see it's a natural flush. I used the Juvia's Place Blush Duo. This is in volume number 1. So the shade that I used on my cheeks was this pretty orange shade right here. I always love orange on brown skin. And then I just put on a little mascara, did a bit of a lip oil, and we are good to go. I didn't bother setting the face because I'm not going anywhere, so this is gonna literally come right back off after I get a couple of pictures. But I hope that for what part of the tutorial that you could see, you did enjoy it. I do want to apologize for the technical delay. We won't have that happen in the future. I just think my phone is low on storage. But that's all that I got for y'all. Hopefully you enjoyed the tutorial. Leave me some comments below telling me what your favorite part was and what you took away from it. And I'll see you guys in the next video. See you later.